So in this video, I'm going to share 5 reasons why you should not start a nonprofit. Are you curious about what those reasons are? Let's get into it. Hey y'all, this is Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. I help new and small nonprofits get up and running. If you need help starting a nonprofit and raising money for your new nonprofit, make sure you follow this channel because I drop videos every week. So I'm going to do a video that just needs to happen because a lot of people automatically assume that a nonprofit is the answer to all their problems. Wherever they're coming from, however they're coming at the conclusion that they need a nonprofit, sometimes it's not the right answer for what you're trying to do. So I thought I would do a video around why you should not, or why you should reconsider starting your nonprofit. Because I want you to be successful. But if it's not the best fit for you, or if it's not something you need to do, then don't waste your time and everybody else's time getting started if it's not going to go anywhere. So make sure you watch to the end of the video because I'm going to give you 2 reasons why nonprofits fail. And so I want you to keep this in mind as you're thinking about starting a nonprofit so you can avoid these mistakes. Now, part of this conversation may be you're trying to decide between a for-profit and a nonprofit. So if you need help kind of navigating that conversation, check out the video that I link above because that may help you think through whether or not a nonprofit or for-profit business is for you. Okay, so I'm just going to get right into it to start with the reasons why you should not be starting a nonprofit. Number 1, I feel like this is obvious, but it needs to be said. If you're just doing it to not pay taxes, I want you to reconsider. So there are some people out here that are telling people to start nonprofits because it's a way to help with their tax burden. And I'm just going to say, I just don't agree with that. And maybe I'm being naive, but I believe that if you're going to set up a nonprofit, particularly a 501c3 charitable nonprofit, that's what I'm talking about today. If you're going to start a charitable nonprofit, then start it with the right intentions. Start it with the right intentions and use your energy to do what it was intended to do. So a lot of people may be cynical about nonprofits. A lot of people may think, yeah, people start nonprofits, but they really don't help people. They really don't do what they're supposed to do. And it's okay to have that opinion, but that's why I teach on this channel. For those who really are genuine, for those who really have the passion but don't have the knowledge and the access, for them to get what they need to honor the true definition of a nonprofit, to honor the true spirit of starting a charitable nonprofit. So I know that you may be considering it because you're like, oh, I don't have to pay my taxes if I do it this way. And so I'll set it up so that I'll always be on the board and I can always benefit. But that's what the IRS is trying to get you to avoid. You having too much control, you kind of doing it for your own personal benefit. That's not the point of it all. And some people will argue with me and say, people do it that way anyway, people benefit, so why can't I? But as for me, I do not believe that you should be using 501c3 charitable nonprofits just for that purpose. Number 2, are you starting a nonprofit simply because you have this dream or something you've always wanted to do, but you haven't validated the idea and you haven't confirmed that someone even needs it? So I'm going to give you a silly example, and I'm not saying that this isn't a good idea for a nonprofit. I'm just using it for example's sake. So maybe your grandmother taught you how to sew, like my grandmother taught me, and you believe that that's what's missing in the world today, that young people need to learn how to sew. If they learned how to sew, then the world will be a better place. But you are maybe living in a community where that doesn't work for the type of young people you're working with. So maybe you're dealing with an age group where it's not appropriate to sew, or a type of demographic where it just doesn't make sense for them to sew. They don't have interest in that. Maybe they have interest in other things and you're trying to force it on them. So you haven't talked to your community about what the needs are, and you haven't made the connection to what the impact of what you're going to do is going to be. What's the anticipated outcome? How is someone's life going to be improved or made better? And the reason why I'm saying this is because you're going to spend your entire nonprofit life trying to prove to everyone else why your organization is a good idea and the fact that it is making a huge impact on someone's life. That's what you're going to have to do for your grant proposals. That's what you're going to have to do for your donation appeals. If you want someone to support your organization, you have to prove and persuade that your organization is a great idea and it's making an impact. But if the whole reason why you started is because it helps you, it serves a purpose for you, and you're not making any connection at all to why your community needs it, who in your community needs it, what's their typical profile, what's their demographics, why this is going to help them, you're going to have a hard way to go. So it's not enough to start a nonprofit simply because you want to give back. It's not enough. You got to go that extra step and say, will what I'm trying to do make an impact? Because if it's not, then you need to reconsider, and you maybe need to just do a project. You maybe just need to do something small in your community, but not start a whole business and organization where you have to raise money and you have to pay staff and do all kinds of things to stay afloat. Number 3, and this is my favorite one. Someone told you to start a nonprofit because there's a bunch of grants out there and you need to go after them. So a lot of people who start their nonprofits automatically assume that once they get 501c3 status, that the floodgates will open, and then all of a sudden people will start raining money on you. I want you to talk to any new nonprofit founder out there, and the majority of them will say, what grant money are you talking about? Tell me where it is so I can go after it. The reality is grant funding is dependent on a lot of different things. It's dependent on a trust factor with the funder. Do they trust that you're the right organization to do what you're trying to do? So that means, have you been doing this work for a considerable amount of time? Can you prove your impact or show the outcomes for the work that you've done? Do you have some kind of innovative idea and have the ability to show a return on investment, or have strong relationships where people will trust you more or invest in you off the strength of those relationships? There are so many different things that go into grant writing. A lot of people think it's just the proposal, and if you have a great proposal, then you can win, and that's just not true. That's not true, y'all. You can have a great proposal, but you up your chances of getting funded when you have other things in place, like a good history of doing good work, like prior relationships with the funder, or credibility in the community, or strong collaboration and partnerships in the community. So it takes time to get to that point where a funder will give you a significant amount of money based on your history. You got to have history in order for that to happen. So if you're thinking that all you need to do is start a nonprofit because you're going to get grants, you're sadly mistaken. And here's the other thing. You should not only be pursuing grants when you are a nonprofit. That is a viable income source, but by no means is it the only income source. So you need to consider other ways to make money. So you have to start thinking about how you're going to get donations, how you're going to earn money. So make sure you check out my video on earned income ideas for ideas about that. You need to figure all of that out in addition to grant writing. Number 4, if you haven't done your research about what is a nonprofit and what are the rules and regulations, I'm going to be as direct as I can as I talk to you today. Starting a nonprofit is completely different from starting a for-profit business or any other kind of business. Starting a nonprofit means there are different rules and regulations that only apply to those types of organizations, and it is your responsibility to know what those rules and regulations are. But a lot of people who start their nonprofits don't find it easy to either understand that information or to find that information. Now, there's a lot of info on the IRS website, but a lot of people are intimidated by what's on the IRS website and don't quite understand what the IRS is saying or what their intent is behind a lot of their rules and regulations. Also, if you don't know what to look for, you don't know what you're missing out on. If you've never heard of something like conflict of interest, for example, then you have no idea that you need to research it. So you got to do your thorough research. You need to buy books. You need to watch YouTube videos like my channel and other channels out here trying to educate you. You need to find nonprofit mentors. You need to talk to nonprofit accountants, nonprofit attorneys, so you understand what it really means to start a nonprofit. And you also have to remember that nonprofits are not just regulated by the IRS. There are particular things that the IRS is interested in, but there are other things that the state that you incorporate in is interested in as well. So you have to make sure you adhere to the state rules and regs as well. So there's layers to this, right? There's a bunch of layers to how you manage a nonprofit. And if you haven't done the research, or if you're not willing to do the work to understand what it takes to start a nonprofit and maintain a nonprofit, I really want you to reconsider whether or not this is the right idea for you. And the last one is, if you have not planned or prepared, and I'm going to talk about what that means. If you haven't done the necessary preparation to be a financially sustainable and effective nonprofit, then you shouldn't start now. That's my caveat. I'm not saying you shouldn't start. I'm saying you should plan and then start. This is the reality. A lot of people who start their nonprofits are so excited. They're so passionate. I know you are, because I talk to you all the time and I just hear it in your voices. I read it in the emails that you send me. You're so passionate about the work that you're doing that you don't even think about the planning part of it, because that's the boring part, right? That's the part that's going to slow you down. All you worried about is getting the paperwork done. Who do I need to talk to? Where do I fill this out? Who do I need to pay? I just need to get this started now. And then what happens is, after they go through all that, then they finish the paperwork. Then the question is, what do I do now? So that's why I'm saying you need to plan first before you launch, so you have a clear roadmap for your nonprofit. So I have a business bundle that has 3 workbooks that kind of walks through the 3 key areas you should be thinking about and planning about before you even start any paperwork. Right? So make sure you check out that business bundle before, but even after you start and you're in the midst of filling out your applications and things like that for the state and the IRS, you need to think about these 4 major plans. You need to think about your strategic plan. You need to think about your budget. You need to think about your fundraising plan, sometimes called your development plan. And you need to be thinking about your communications and marketing plan. Those are 4 major areas you need to be considering. Of course, because there are different types of nonprofits and different work you're going to do, you may have other plans, but those are 4 foundational plans you should be thinking about, working on, hashing out before you decide to start your nonprofit. Because you have to figure out, once you get started, how are you going to stay visible? How are you going to gain the trust and credibility of people in your community in order for them to fund you so that you can do good work and have positive outcomes for the people that you're serving. And if you haven't thought through these things, it's going to be difficult for you. It's going to be a hard way to go. I'm not saying it's impossible, because look, nonprofit founders start every day and they figure it out. It takes them a long time, and they figure out eventually that they need to have planned and they should have done something beforehand, but they do figure it out. I'm just telling you to make it easier on you so you don't have to go through this yourself. You don't have to be disappointed and discouraged yourself. So make sure you do the proper preparation and planning and do those 4 plans that I mentioned. Here's the good thing. I also have a nonprofit startup workbook that helps you figure out those 4 plans in particular. So the workbook has different worksheets that walks through different areas of the startup journey, and there are worksheets dedicated to those 4 plans in particular, and it also includes a budget template and a fundraising plan template that you can use for this process as well. So make sure you do that. If you don't have those plans in place, make sure you grab the workbook so you can start working on that today. So I promise at the end of the video to share 2 of the biggest reasons I see nonprofits fail, and they are a lack of vision and a lack of resources. So when the leadership fails to plan, when the leadership fails to look beyond and create a vision and a strategy around that vision, then it becomes difficult to weather storms like a pandemic or to weather storms like a loss in funding. When you don't have any kind of vision and you are not prepared for what's next and you're not assessing what's around you to make sure you're making the right decision. So that's number 1, a lack of vision and a lack of strategy around that. And then 2, lack of resources. When you don't prepare yourself to be able to make money so that you can financially sustain, you're going to fail. All right. So you need to be thinking about how you're going to earn income so you can be around to serve your participants. But it's not just about getting by. It's not just about having just enough. It's about having ample resources so you can pay your staff well, because I'm very passionate about that. You want to be able to pay your staff well, pay them what they deserve, because They will give quality services to your clients when they have quality resources, when they have quality support for the organization that they're working for. And you need resources to have a strong infrastructure so you can be more effective as an organization, right? So you need resources to survive, but you also need resources to thrive. So thank you all for listening to me in this video. I really hope that some of this advice you took to heart and you're able to use this to help you make decisions about whether or not you should be doing a nonprofit. If you need more help about starting a nonprofit, make sure you visit me at www.bossonthebudget.com and we'll talk more. All right, y'all. See you in the next video.